What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Happy Friday to you. It is the undefeated post-weigh-in show for UFC Paris, and we are pumped up. We are hyped. Do not forget, tomorrow it's mimosas and waffles. This is an AM fight. We are going head-to-head in the morning. Lots of action. They're off over in Paris, so set your alarm clocks. It's not nearly as bad as Singapore. We're not waking up at 2 a.m. or anything like that, but you'll just barely have been finishing up your croissant and eggs, and then the fights will be going. So make sure you grab yourself a nice morning beverage and sit back for some MMA action. As usual, on this show, we take everything we've learned throughout the week, we take all of our study, we compact it into one place, and then we watch these fighters weigh in, and we look for any little edge that we might be able to take to push us over that ledge to make one more good bet for UFC Saturdays. Hit that like button, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio if you haven't already, and if you are an audio listener, leave me a 5-star review. I don't talk about you guys enough. Let's get into it. First fight of the night, you've got Jacqueline Cavalcanetti taking on Zerafern dos Santos. Apparently this is a catchweight fight, and I'm confused as to whether or not it was always a catchweight fight, and I somehow missed that, or if it turned into a catchweight fight when Zerafern realized she was never going to make 135 pounds. I said I thought this fight was going to be canceled, because I knew for a fact that Zerafern was never going to make 135 pounds. So I think they bumped this thing up to a 140-pound catchweight, and Zerafern missed that. She came in at 140 and a half. It took her 2 attempts using the box of shame, an extra hour's worth of cutting to finally get down to that 140-pound mark. She looked really rough in that box of shame. She had a hard time making that weight. Now, when they did call weight, she did scream like a rampant savage. She is ready to go. She's got some emotion. She looks like she's ready for this fight. Her opponent, Jacqueline, on the other hand, though, she looked a little bit rough. She's a big girl as well. I mean, when these two came and faced off, they sized up okay. Now, Zerafern is not a 135er. She could never make 135 pounds. We've talked about this. She's a 145er who can't quite work her way down, and she's old. So the fact that she's got a size advantage on Jacqueline is not surprising to me whatsoever. But the fact that Jacqueline looked like she had a bit of a tough time making 139, that's where I kind of wonder. Were they going down to 135 and then pulled the plug at the last second? Because she looked like she had made a bit of a tougher cut there. So this is going to be interesting. Now, you've got Jacqueline as a big, solid favorite, minus 135 here in this spot. And for a women's MMA low-level debutante, that is a sickening number. It's gross. It's disgusting. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. But at the same time, I do think Zerafern dos Santos finds herself in a very exclusive club. There's very few fighters that go 0-3 to start their career and then finally get that first UFC win and extend things. They're bringing her on this stage to make Jacqueline look good. She's at the wrong weight class. She's at the end of her career. She doesn't have any wins at the UFC level, and quite frankly, she's a punching bag and finishable at the UFC level if she's fighting people who are roughly her size. I do think Jacqueline is probably going to find her way to a finish because she's got slick hands. This girl can crack. She's going to have a speed advantage. She's got the youth advantage. I think it's just a matter of time in this fight before she finds a spot to finish Zerafern dos Santos. I would play her inside the distance rather than KO if you're going to play anything. It's close to even money, which again, just gross. You're getting even money on an unproven debutante for an inside the distance prop. It's awful. Please, maybe even don't do it. This is probably one it's okay to pass, but at the same time, I also feel like this is the setup of all setups. They want her to get in there and get a highlight reel over this girl who we have seen capable of being finished time and time and time again. She's also got the better gas tank. So it just all signs point to Jacqueline Cavalcanetti as long as she doesn't just shit the bed and make this thing a problem. You know what I mean? Next up, you've got Farid Basharat taking on Klidson Rodriguez. Farid came in at 136, Klidson 134 and a half. Farid Basharat stoic and strong up on the scales today. He looked great. Klidson Rodriguez actually looked solid as well because he's normally a 125er who can't make 125. He is filled out at 135. This guy is very well muscled at this weight class. Doesn't need to blow back up after cutting all that weight. Looks like he probably still cuts to get to 135. Big dude. Now Klidson, he came in and he did the elbow to the throat thing on Farid, and Farid just kind of shook his head at him and was like, no. It wasn't even a question. The amount of self-belief in this man It was not. It was pretty funny because some people try to brush that kind of thing off, or they get mad, they get intense. Freed was just like, no, kid. Like the confidence was just oozing off of Basharat in this spot. Decent height advantage for Basharat, the natural 135er. Kind of the same thing as the last fight. I hate the line because you're giving me a plus 275 on a guy with a puncher's chance who's incredibly explosive against a semi-unproven Basharat, bro. Like, I do think he's the side. I do think he's the better fighter. He also is the larger fighter. But Klitzin is the kind of guy that can catch literally anybody. I do think this is a spot where Farid shows out. Maybe we look at the sub prop because I do think that's how he wins, is grinding on Rodriguez, making him tired, dragging him deep into the fight. So I'm definitely picking a Bash Bro here. Maybe he finds his way into our sub special. Kind of hard to bet at minus 350. You may be a live bet because if he does lose that first round, or if it gets close because Klitzin comes out hard, you get a better number live, and then you don't have to sweat him dying in round one before actually getting involved financially. On the flip side, this is one of those tough ones. If Farid comes out strong and he takes him down and he wins the first round, he's going to be minus 1,000 going into round two. You're never going to get an opportunity to put money on him. So pick your poison there on that one. Next up, you've got Nora Cornoli taking on Jocelyn Edwards. Both women made 136 pounds today. And Nora looked awful. I mean, she needed the box of shame up there. She looked very rough. Her eyes were sunken in. She was discolored. When she made weight, she got emotional. I mean, this is like the holy trinity of things that we're looking to bet against when people have bad weight cuts. It really is. She looked absolutely terrible. Jocelyn Edwards, on the other hand, she looked like she was in phenomenal shape. Now, she's been kind of flirting with 135, 145, had a couple weight issues before. Her abs were popping today. Like, she looked fantastic. Looks like she took this camp very seriously. Looked like she did okay with the weight cut, and Edwards has a slight height advantage here in this spot when they faced off. Now, both women smiling with that confidence of knowing that they're going to win. One of them obviously is wrong. We'll find out on Saturday which one that is. Jocelyn Edwards is the slight favorite still, minus 120. You can get Nora at plus 100 even money. I know a lot of people backing Nora in this spot. She is the hometown girl, but I can't get over the discrepancy in experience. I know Jocelyn Edwards is no prize. I know she's not somebody who we really want to go to war with in these situations as the favorite. Maybe you roll the dice on her as an underdog. It's tough to lay chalk on her, though, because she is only ever in these pitter-pattery type of decisions and just barely squeezing by. Nora's a force. She's going to come out strong. She's going to hit hard, and we have seen that be a problem for Jocelyn Edwards in the past. This is a wonderful live betting opportunity because Nora's going to come out hard, and if Jocelyn Edwards survives that early onslaught, this girl gas dumps like nothing I've ever seen before. She has nothing to offer in round two, and somebody who's a little bit more experienced and somebody who's been the nail a couple times already is going to be able to weather that storm and then come back and flip the tables on her. I actually think Jocelyn Edwards, believe it or not, kind of like JJ Aldrich last week, she's got an opponent in front of her who she can finish because she'll gas out so hard she just won't have anything left to offer in the second or the third rounds. Jocelyn Edwards is not a finisher, folks. I repeat, not a finisher. But she's got miles more experience in the world of mixed martial arts over this girl, and she's got a better gas tank. So if Nora comes out and doesn't get that early finish, it's Jocelyn all day, and you'll get a better number live on it, and maybe even we sprinkle the 2 and 3 props. I'm picking Jocelyn Edwards to win this fight, but that is with the full-on emergency shoot button that Nora is going to win this thing in round one. Like, if she comes out hard and clips Jocelyn Edwards to the gut, it's round one KO Nora every time. So all you got to do is fade that early blitz, and then it's Edwards season. I'm probably not going to bet this fight, at least not in any serious capacity. Be careful, buyer be warned if you do. It's another one where the winner looks minus 1,000 in hindsight. Angelusa takes on Reese McKee up next. Both guys made 171. Angelusa did need the box of shame. That's a theme today. A lot of people having tough weight cuts, needing that extra naked time to go ahead and make the weight cut there. But my God, is this man huge. Absolutely jacked. He's got so much muscle on that frame. No sweat, though, for Reese McKee. McKee goes up there and looks fine. Confident, relaxed, feeling himself today. And there's an extreme height difference, folks. Now, this is the spot today because I've been watching this card, and I'll be honest with you, there's only 1 or 2 fights where I'm really interested in the sizes, right? Like, we know size matters, but it only matters in certain circumstances. If it's not that big of a difference, it's no big deal. But if you've got two people of relatively even skill and one is much larger than the other or has a crazy reach advantage or something, that'll be enough to tip the scales sometimes. This is a fight that caught me off guard. We know Rhys McKee is tall and lanky. We know Angelusa is short and explosive. However, what we didn't realize is that that right hand that Angelusa is going to rely on in this fight will never touch the chin of Rhys McKee because he's that freaking short. This is a comical height difference. I can't believe how tall Rhys McKee is in this spot. He is massive. And I didn't really want to bet Rhys McKee, but I put a tweet out a couple days ago and I was just like, man, I don't know what it is, but like everything on the tape tells me that this is Angelusa's fight. Everything tells me that Angelusa should win this fight. He's got the UFC experience. He's impossible to finish. He's well-rounded. He can hit hard. He's only losing to good, solid guys. And for some reason, the hairs on the back of my neck are just telling me Rhys McKee wins this fight. I mean, again, it's one of those situations where you take all of the information you've got, you take all of the footwork and all of the effort, you crumple it up and you throw it out the window because I just think Rhys is going to win. And I don't, you guys know I don't cap that way. You know, I look for value. I try to find the best number, things like that. And I don't have anything that really tells me that Rhys McKee is going to win this thing outside of surviving a beatdown in rounds 1 and 2 and squeezing a decision. That's his path to victory here. But I feel like that's going to happen. And watching these two guys face off, seeing the height difference, the teep kick, the jab. Like, if he can just keep Angelusa at distance, Ange's never going to be able to touch him. He's going to have to grapple to, like, close that distance. He's going to get very frustrated out there at range. And when fighters get frustrated because they can't follow their game plan, they can't quite make ends meet, they can't close the gap, then they start making mistakes. Then they start getting desperate. Then they start doing things that they shouldn't do or otherwise wouldn't do. And that leads to them being open to opportunities for their opponents. So I actually think Rhys McKee is probably going to get this done. You know, you look back at the record of Angelusa and who's the two guys at the UFC caliber, at the UFC level that he's lost to? Guys that are taller and longer than him. Mounir Lazzez is a perfect example of this. Like, he's tall, rangy, and long, and he just got dropped from the UFC. I don't understand why Rhys couldn't follow a similar game plan of keeping up with the footwork, sticking the jab, and sticking that teep kick out there and winning a decision here. Now, Rhys McKee always turns up the later the fight gets, so maybe there's a late finish on the table here. Luce has never been finished, so I don't really want to count on that. But I do actually think Rhys McKee, and then Rhys McKee by decision. I may add that to my card. Crazy to say. I wasn't really expecting to do that, but we might find ourselves there here this week. Next up, Taylor Lapilus takes on Colin Loughran. This is one of the fights that got swapped around because of the whole weight situation. Lapilus 135, Loughran 136. No issues for Lapilus at all. Calm, relaxed, very confident in himself. Loughran, on the other hand, thick. Buddy is thick. Well-muscled, not bothered whatsoever today. Lapilus does have a slight height advantage. Loughran is much thicker, but my favorite part about this was him coming out, flipping off the crowd. And then even after, like, facing off, he's talking shit to Lapilus, and the crowd starts booing, and he, like, completely turns away from Lapilus and goes back to flipping off the crowd. Like, I love the attitude on this kid. He's fun. He's gonna be fun. Now, Lapilus is a slight favorite, minus 175, and it's one of those spots where it makes sense because he is the more skilled, more technical guy. He's the hometown guy here in France. However, Loughran is just a force. He's an absolute force. This guy's a hammer. He comes forward, and he looks to trade. If he gets a couple of good power shots on you, suddenly you're in trouble. Now, Lapilus is a guy, he's going to do everything he can to avoid the fight. Very technical, very slick, very smooth. So there's a chance that Loughran's just never going to get that opportunity and he gets pieced up for 15 minutes. But Loughran only needs one. So, again, I'm passing on this, folks. I don't mind anybody who wants to take the KO shot on Loughran. If you're saying Lapilus is far and away the better fighter, never should have been cut from the UFC, that makes sense too. Go ahead and lay it. This is a complete pass from me. I think the UFC, the direction that they're going, they would much rather have a guy like Loughran who comes out and goes to war on a daily basis, and the judges seem to be favoring guys like that. So if Lapilus comes back and ends up in a close split decision, I'd be worried about him losing that, even though he's the hometown guy in France. And I'm worried that Loughran is going to win these big moments in the fight with those big power punches, and that'll lead him to a decision victory if he can't quite crack the chin of Lapilus, which, frankly, I'm convinced Loughran probably can crack the chin of just about anybody. So Kind of a dog or pass for me. I'll pick Lapalus to win. Another spot that I hate. I'm very light on this undercard, folks. Most of my action is on the main card of this fight because there's so many questions around this undercard. Terrible fighters, new fighters, fighters without experience, fighters with new opponents on fight day 2 days in advance because they swapped and can't make weight. Like, it's a crazy card, so just be careful out there this week. Next up, you've got Morgan Charriere taking on Manolo Zecchini, and we've got 146 on both sides here. Both guys made 146 pounds, and Morgan looks strong, looks very strong. I'll be honest with you. I love the red splash that he threw in his hair. I need hair. That's the thing. Like, I could do cool things with my hair if I just had any, but he looks like a complete badass up there with the red tint there in his hair. Manolo, he is absolutely shredded. This guy is in serious shape, and after he made weight, he was like flying like an eagle up there, flapping his wings. Not sure what that's all about, but Manolo does have a very slight size advantage. It's not a big one, nothing to write home about, but this was a very intense face-off, and it was interesting because there was no handshake. Like, these guys went locked. They stared into each other's souls, and then when it was over, Manolo just stormed off. Like, there's no, respect here. There is no sportsmanship here. They're gonna fight, and they're gonna go to war, and I can't wait for it. So, no handshake, intense face-off. Morgan screams at the crowd. The crowd erupts. He's the hometown man. I kind of talked about it before that I feel like that's too big of a price tag. Minus 350 on Morgan. He fights too close, but he's a stud in France. He's an absolute star over there. They love him. If this fight is close, he's getting the victory. And if Manolo doesn't finish him early, I don't know that he wins a decision. I don't think he can. I don't think he's built that way. So it all comes down to Morgan kind of playing the Matador in round 1, round 2 maybe. And then it's just Morgan season from that point. So I'm going to pick him to win. I don't think I'm going to bet him. Maybe I'll take a look at the inside the distance props, or maybe he fits in a parlay somewhere, something like that. Morgan, I definitely think, is the guy to go ahead and play here in this spot. Yanis Ghemmouri takes on William Gomis up next. Both made 146 pounds. Yanis gave the double thumbs up. Huge flex. Guy's looking good. William Gomis, no issues for him. He doesn't really have trouble making weight here at this spot. Slight height advantage for Gomis. Respectful face-off. Yanis is thick, though. When you look at these guys' frames, they're very similar. Yanis is definitely the one that's got some more muscle on him, and I think that's evident by the way he fights. He does hit with more explosive power, where Gomis does everything he can to avoid the fight. He just really doesn't engage, and he wants to kind of pitter-patter his way to a decision. Both these guys are the hometown fighters, so if we see a close split decision, there's no guarantees Gomis going to be the one getting it. I kind of like dog or pass here. I really do. Gomis is the type of guy that's infuriating to bet against because he can just shut your opponent, your opponent's offense down the entire fight, and then you're losing a decision and going, why did I try to bet against this guy again? For that reason, I'm probably not going to try to bet against him again because Yanis is going to have to do something to win this fight, and if he can't catch Gomis, he's going to lose a decision. So from a betting perspective, I do think Yanis is the side. I'm probably passing. This could be a very, very boring fight. It really could be, because that's kind of what Gomis turns all of his fights into. Next up, you've got Bogdan Guskov taking on Volkan Oezdemir. Both men made 205 pounds. Bogdan, big flex. No problem. He's looking good. He looks like a much younger, much thicker version of me up there with a shaved head. And then you've got Volkan Oezdemir, very calm, very stoic. He looked a bit soft, and I've talked about that before, where the body types, if people come in muscled 1 week and then soft the next, you wonder if they had a bad camp. You wonder if they're not motivated. Did they take it seriously? Like, those are all questions I have to ask about that, especially on a fighter who I am personally thinking is fading towards the end of his career, maybe falling off a bit. These guys sized up really well. Guskov chomping at the bit to get in there. I mean, you could see his jaw clenching as they faced off. Now, Oezdemir, he had a very calm reaction to all of this. Cool, collected, couldn't be bothered. It was really actually, one of those things that I usually kind of like to say they win the face-off when that happens. It's like this kid is coming up and he's just like, nah, bro, you don't bother me. I've seen monsters. I'm not scared of you. And that's kind of concerning for a guy that did take a bet on Bogdan. I took the shot because I'm fading Volkan Oezdemir. I like the way Guskov strikes. I like his head movement. I like his range control. And I'm not sure that Volkan Oezdemir can take too many big power shots like that these days. Now, Guskov, I worry about his chin a little bit. I really do. So that's definitely a question, but he does come from Russia. He is training with Johnny Walker. There's that grappling opportunity in this spot. We've seen him as a striker time and time again, but Guskov's actually also a BJJ black belt. And he's training with a bunch of guys who have had wrestling heavy game plans lately, and we've seen that work on Volkan Oezdemir, a guy who used to have stellar takedown defense and was never able to hit the floor. He's been washed after the first round on the ground a couple of times recently because he gets tired and just doesn't have it after that point anymore. So I think actually Guskov has a lot of different paths to victory in this fight, and I'm gonna sprinkle that 18-1 sub prop. Just a taste, just a little bit, because if he gets Volkan Oezdemir on the ground, there's a chance that he can find something, an opportunity, and go ahead and be the younger guy with the better gas tank and just find that neck, lock it up. Give me the win, Guskov. That's all I'm asking for. But if you could do it by sub, that would make my day. Next up, you've got Thiago Moisés taking on Benoît Saint Denis. Twitter civil war of the week here. Thiago Moisés, very intense, blinking rapidly, though. Like, that's one thing that he had his game face on, but I could tell that he had a bit of a tough cut because his eyes were giving him away. Benoît Saint Denis, absolutely huge. Jacked. This man is huge. Big size difference. This is the one I was looking for. You know, Reese McKee surprised me, but this is the one I had my eye on. Benoît Saint Denis is a massive, massive man. And now, even though Thiago Moisés is the more technical fighter, which I've talked about before being something we want to be on, there's a certain thing where physicality just makes a difference. Sometimes being the better technical fighter doesn't work because you're just undersized, you're not strong enough, you get bullied, and I really think that Thiago Moisés has to win a decision in this fight. He has to be able to pick and poke Benoît Saint Denis and piece him up so perfectly that even on home turf, the judges won't give it to the guy that the crowd erupts for every time he lands a shot. And I think that's too much to ask. Thiago Moisés is not that good of a technician. He makes mistakes when he's in there, and he gives away rounds to people and then has to come back with submissions. You're not out grappling Benoît Saint Denis. He is the better grappler. He's the higher level jiu-jitsu player. However, he's the smaller, less physical man, and we have yet to see somebody really get dominance in grappling over Benoît Saint Denis. I don't think Moisés is going to be that guy, and I also think Moisés is breakable. We've seen him get walked down by bigger, stronger fighters. I think the UFC set this up beautifully for Benoît on home soil. He's going to be a star after this fight. I already have a bet in on him. I got that in early at -115. I hope everybody else did the same. Benoît Saint Denis is all the way up to -165 now, so lots of closing line value. I hope we are not on the mush of the week. It's possible, of course. Fingers crossed he gets it done for us because I really like that spot. Co-main event, Manon Fiorot takes on Rose Namajunas, 125 pounds for both women. Big deep breaths today from Manon Fiorot, and she was visibly shaking when she put her arm up to flex after her weigh-in. This was a tough cut for Manon. She is the older of the two women in this spot, and she is the more physical, much larger woman. Very, very similar to what I said on my last breakdown. Rose Namajunas, blank face, no emotion. She's ready to go up there. Now, Manon obviously is about 2 inches taller. She does have a size advantage in this spot, and that's why a lot of people are counting Rose out. However, the difference between this fight and the last fight is that Thiago Moisés is not a championship caliber fighter. He's a guy that fails every single time he gets into that contender circle. He takes that step up, and that's when he falls short. Rose Namajunas has gold wrapped around her waist on more than one occasion. She is a championship caliber fighter, someone who has seen the absolute peak of this sport. Her moving up and having a slight size advantage, she's not the one that I'm concerned about going in there and pulling off a quit job. In fact, I think people are discounting her resume because of her last fight, where she really had the worst performance of her life, and no one can argue that that was just an absolute snooze fest of a battle with Carla Esparza. This is different. She has no reason not to come in here and try for new heights, try to get her way to a belt at a new weight class. Manon Fiorot might be a star in France, but I just have always had questions about her. I've never been overly impressed with her. She's a decisionator for being how big and physical she is. She throws hips. Rose can take her back. I actually think sub is on the table here. Let's go Rose Namajunas. I'm on the dog. Next up, you've got Ciryl Gane taking on Sergey Spivak in the main event. 250 for Gane, 256 for Spivak. These are some big boys. I mean, you couldn't get a bigger contrast because Ciryl Gane is jacked. He's got some of the biggest muscles you've ever seen. And then Sergey Spivak is aptly named the polar bear. There's a big old flabby boy, but you can see there's muscle underneath the flab. It's not a Parker Porter situation here. These guys size up really well, and they are huge. I can't wait for this fight, but it definitely is a spot where I have bought low on Ciryl Gane. I put the tweet out there. -160 is what I laid here on this spot, and the line started chugging the opposite direction. As soon as it hit -160, it's headed upwards from there. You're seeing -175s and -180s again. I think the line was right when it opened around -300. Sergey Spivak, can get takedowns, but he can't hold people down, and I think that's the difference between him and Jon Jones. Ciryl Gane will be able to shuck off some of those takedowns. He will be able to get back up, and then when they're on their feet, Spivac is a punching bag. I think this Ciryl Gane reminds everybody who's who in this spot. He is the star for this card. He is the guy that they built this card around, and if a couple of these other French people tend to fall off a little bit on this card, take a couple L's, like maybe Manon doesn't quite pull it off in the co-main event, Cyryl's going to be the guy that gets it done. Round 2, body shot, KO. Let's go, Ciryl Gane. That is the Undefeated post-weigh-in show, folks. Good luck on all your degenerate action. Get it locked in early because we're waking up for mimosas and waffles. Let's roll.